G'day everyone, welcome to Steel Horse Station. Hope you're doing well. And today we're back in Newlands, so a bit of a break from everything else that's going on. I just want to check one thing, that's all fine. So it's been Platinum Expansion Week, but we've got our own little version of Silver Run Forest. Just hang on a tick. I was managed to get myself confused. Thank you very much. G'day Space Wolf Cub. I managed to have my own stream start in the background and play on delay through my ears, which was most disconcerting. So without any further ado, let's get this underway, shall we? Let me see here now. I'm almost got OBS mastered. That should give you all a screen. And formally welcome to Cranky and Space Wolf Cub. So it's nice to have you with us, and anyone else that might be hiding out there, lurking in Cyberland. I hope everyone's enjoyed the week's proceedings with the Platinum expansion. There's certainly been a lot of interesting viewing and some fun with the new equipment. If you didn't catch it, Argsy very kindly the other day. What size am I making? I don't want to do that. I want at least 150s. There we go. Argsy and I streamed a little bit of shenanigans on Wednesday night Oz time, so that was very kind of him actually. He'd set up a multiplayer server and had invited a few people along and was happy. Geez, that didn't take long. I don't want you to drop there necessarily because that'll just be in the way. He invited a few people along. Let's see where this rolls to, shall we? And so we did some joint forestry. I managed to demonstrate that trying to drive some of this equipment with just a keyboard really is not that much fun. It's quite challenging. You can get there, but sorting out the keybinds, I think, is a major issue. It's not, sorry, issue's the wrong word. It's a challenge. So you've got to, and then it takes a little bit of practice to get used to, but some of the equipment has so many different axes and dimensions and buttons for different functions. It takes a little while. G'day, Jason. How are you? Welcome along. We're just baling up this piece of ground for this contract, which, what field are we on? We're on field 9. So hopefully we'll be able to finish this. For those of you that joined me the other day, when was that? It would have been Monday evening your time. We finished off trying to, because the Platinum expansion was just out, we finished off trying to use the Yada, and I had absolutely no joy whatsoever. Since then, I have managed to diagnose the problem. I couldn't connect it. I couldn't find a tree to anchor it to. In fact, Jason was helping me out, and we hunted around and found one undersized pine tree that it would connect to, which was it wouldn't connect to, but it would at least give us a different message which would tell us it wouldn't connect. And the cut wood that was on the floor, I couldn't connect either. So subsequent to the stream, I did some forensics and discovered that if I planted a base game tree, so just a standard run of the mill, what do you find in plants? Trees. Just picked a big, where are they? They're on the right here somewhere. A large pine. If I'd popped one of those in, lo and behold, the yarder would connect to it. I found also that if I spawned using EasyDev a couple of logs, the yarder would pick them up. So I thought, well, that's a bit bizarre. That tends to suggest that it's not a unique to Silverrun thing. It's a tree thing. And so my investigations subsequent, I went on to Holmacra, where we streamed before, and connected up, and the yarder worked perfectly first time. So, whoops. I've got the sound on the beeper set a little bit low, I think. So what I concluded from that was that it was a definition issue with the trees, and so taking my life in my hands, and as I explained to Mark Thor, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. So I know enough to be dangerous, just not enough to be competent. And I went into Giants Editor and was able to determine that the trees on here are not properly defined for the most part. And so if you're familiar with the editor, or at least any sort of conversation about the editor, one of the things that these objects have are collisions, right? And they have a set of attributes called a collision mask, which describes what types of objects in the game can interact with them, and therefore in what way. Well, it seems that the trees on this map don't actually have the bit for tree set, which is bit 11 if you've got any interest. So the good news was that was the issue. The bad news was it then needs to be fixed. So there's over 600 trees, and I don't know of an easy way to fix them quickly, because it involves getting in and editing each one individually. So I have done a bunch. I've lost count. Oh, I've stopped counting because it was just too fiddly. But I've done a bunch, enough to enable us to progress. So over there where we were working, there are now some trees, not necessarily all of them, that A, can connect to the yarder, and B, oh, that's the other interesting thing. So if you're interested, I learned when you cut a tree, it's not fallen timber is not actually an object, so you can't go into your save game files and find the log and fix it or do anything with it. A fallen tree is actually a kind of like a bit of crop, so it's not editable. However, if you edit the base tree, you change the characteristics of the fallen tree. So the logs, some of the logs on the ground, and I'll show you that shortly, now have the correct characteristics and therefore can be picked up with the yarder. So that was a long discussion. And Jason, to your question, I'm happy within limitations to, if there's enough interest later on in the stream, to jump into Giants Editor and just show you how I did it, just in case anybody encounters this on another map. As with anything, you just got to be careful when editing the maps take backups and proceed slowly, because if you booger it up, so to speak, that's a technical description, you will, that's not going to go up there, you will screw up the map. So I'm pleased to say I was able to get that done successfully now. And what'll it means, okay, I'm happy to do that. I'll do that later on. Well, let's do a little bit of gameplay. So I suspect it was, and you'll see when I get in, Jason, the way Giant's Editor works, so it's built around objects, as you can imagine. Now, if the map maker's original model for an object, like a tree, has an error, and he or she then duplicates that tree, like in this case 600 times, then that error is duplicated 600 times. But once it's positioned in the map, each one has an individual location. So if you think of it as an instance, each instance is different. So the attributes of each of the 600 potentially could be different. And I'm sure there is a script or a way to produce a script to change a single attribute of objects that are all the same. And that would be good, but that is beyond my pay grade. I do not know how to do that. And that was the thing Mark Thor may know how to do it, but certainly didn't have the time and was not able to explain that, to me. So get that off there. Now, let's see. We've got a bunch of bales. How many does this contract want? Do we know? I don't know if I've got... I don't have better contracts on, so I've got no way of knowing. We are baling field 9. Let us... yes, that's correct. In fact, they don't necessarily have to be before you begin, but once you replicate them, the map keeps a separate set of descriptions, if you like, or attributes for each instance of a placeable. Now, if they're all the same and they never change, then all those instances are the same except for the physical location. And that's where the bit with trees comes into play. G'day, Mustard Seed, how are you, sir? Now, what I would really like to do here is get an auto-load bale trailer, because that would be much easier than fiddling around with those silly little forks that I don't like so much. Where has this got to be delivered to? Let's have a look at that. Field 9 is going to the animal dealer, which I have no idea where it is. I am sure that the better map makers have all sorts of tools that allow them to correct things on the fly of the sort that I'm talking about, and I just don't have the skills or experience. But it was certainly a bit of fun to go in and have a look at it. Where is the animal dealer? Maybe it's down here somewhere. Aha. Other end of the map. So I am reckoning we're not going to mess with those forks. We just need to generate some money. And generating money requires selling stuff. We won't be able to get into the... Where else can we sell those trees? Farmers market is definitely the best price. Let's see here. Yes, that's correct, Jason. So the map maker, for whatever reason, didn't have this bit set correctly. The transport company will give me 1,500 for these trees. How much do I need for a bale trailer of the sort that would be useful? A bale trailer would... I was thinking the Anderson. That's expensive. What do we got here? At least, yeah, I know I don't have enough money. Okay, we'll solve for it later. What we might do is... Well, quick show of hands. How many people are interested in seeing the Giants editor just quickly for the tree fix? I know Jason expressed... Jason seems interested. Cranky expressed some interest. Others on chat, if I jump in there quickly for a minute, is that going to be cool with folks? I'll wait for a second for you to respond. We are going to take you across because we are going to sell you at some point. I'll get off there. So if you look up, you can see the yard extends across the yard there. Tutorials for reference are always good. Okay, that's enough yeses. I think we will jump in there in just a second then. So that's where I've set the yarder up. So you can see the top of the tower through there, and it runs overhead to a tree up the hill. The idea being that I don't drop logs on the greenhouse, but that I can lower them down into the delivery point for the chipper. Now it's not quite perfect because I haven't spent a long time messing with it, but it does sort of work. I'll show you the other aspect of this symptom while we're down here before we jump into the editor. So over here, right, so yard is set up. It's got its stays. I had left enough trees standing. I have some different logs on the ground, and because I'm in range of the yarder, I can put it in follow mode. And if I put it in follow mode and attempt to pick this tree up, it's not interested. Same with this one. So these are trees that, there you go, there's one that is. So I've fixed the trees that I fixed the tree that this is associated with, but I haven't fixed these ones. And if you were here for the first episode on this map where we had so you can see several of them are working properly. Even the oak tree. Is it oak? Sorry, maple tree. So it's not like it's unique. The issue existed for all the trees. That's carried attached tree to yarder. Right, so I can pick that up quite happily now. And away we go. And we can run over to the other side. Oops, turn follow back on. And it'll come across with me. I haven't quite got it positioned to go overhead. The others tend to be a little bit finicky with which tree they'll connect to, but you can see we're zooming across here. And it's fairly high, as you can see. Now I could detach the tree from a great height, which would probably create a mess. Or I can just lower him down. Oh, that's moving the carriage. Let's try N, I think is lower. There we go. Now the only thing I've found, which is an issue that I haven't solved, is because the trigger here uses R to accept the timber, I can't actually activate the trigger if the tree's in the same place, because if I stand over here, I'll turn the follow mode on the carriage. So I actually have to get rid of the yarder for that to work. But you can see the idea. So I just wanted to demonstrate that we can move trees and detach, and there we go. The tree moved across. So if I get it set up properly, and I'm hoping, just before we go to the tutorial part, where are we here? I noticed there was a section. I'm hoping I can actually remap the keys, or that key. Pull winch rope is enable follow. I can. Now what am I going to remap it to? Even control R would be better, wouldn't it? So if I use control R, that will solve my problem, I hope. Control R, perfect. So if I get it lined up now, I should be able to drop that in the right spot. Okay, let's pause that there. And now I've got to be really clever with OBS here. This is something, we're in new territory here, folks. Now, if I go to there, you can see my desktop, correct? And then we get into my messy folders. Which down here? Oh no, yes. FS22, mod safety, test stuff. Is that where I put it? No. Workbench map, right. So, most of you, I would expect, the familiar stuff, including maps, are zipped up. And so you need to unzip. And so when you unzip the Newlands map, you end up with a directory called maps and these other files. Just half looks cut off to the right-hand side. Can you see? Where can you see to? Okay, so that's because I've got the canvas resolution. How do I fix that quickly? Just give me a... YouTube is not receiving enough video. Oh, that's a message I haven't seen before. Let me see here. If I go into there, and I've got to just fix that. Because my desktop's a different resolution, I suspect that's what was causing the... That should be a bit better, hopefully. So let's... Right. So if I now go into the maps directory... Yeah, we'll use it up in a minute, Jason. Just give me a sec. So in the maps directory, the one you want is called, in this case, map. It's an i3D file. And if you've got the Giants editor installed, I'm not going to go through that. It'll take a second to start up and load the map. Now, hopefully you can see all of that. Yeah. So we're in Giants Editor and we're looking at the map. You can see the factory and the greenhouses are positioned over here. In this view, they don't show. And we have trees. And the commands for moving around and navigating are a bit different, but I can select objects. And in this particular case, these are trees. Now, it won't show any fallen trees. It only shows trees that have been positioned on the map. And over here in the section called Scene Graph, these are actually all the objects. So if I just shrink that down for a second. Can't see the left items. That's odd. Okay, let me... I don't know why it's not working properly, but that's probably something I'm not doing right. Is that better? The system's complaining a little bit, so I don't know what's cutting what. Anyway, so items, left pane was cut off. Fine now, right. So over here is the directory structure for all the objects that are on the map. Some are visible, some are not. And as you can see, depending on the map maker, this might be self-explanatory or not. In this particular case, he appears to have put most of the trees in a group called tree. But you can see there are literally hundreds of them. And if we you go to our scene graph here and click on an individual tree, it will actually take us down. And well, in this case, I've got two, but it'll highlight. And so if we open up the tree, we find all of the stuff about the tree. Now, in this particular case, the part of the shape that we're interested in is called LOD0. And you can, if you're able to see the attributes on the right-hand side, I'll just scooch it in a little bit just to make sure. It's telling us a little bit of stuff about it, but specifically what we want is the attributes under rigid body. And you'll see here, there's a collision mask set. Now, this is a good example. This is one I haven't changed yet. If we go into collision mask, these are the attributes that do the things that I was talking about. And the one that we want for a tree set properly is 11. So we set OK. And that's it. This tree is now set correctly. And somewhere down here will be the other. Oh, there's only one highlighted now. Now I've got to be careful of these attributes because if I change other things, then I can create other effects. But that's the change that's required. It's just required plenty of time. So if I go into one of these, for example, just trying to see if I can luck into one that I've already changed. And rigid body, and you can see there, that one's, because the mask is 822. It's already got it's set, so I've already corrected it. So once I've corrected the tree bit, I then save the file. Right, save i3D file. That's simple. That's simple. There's no special thing you need to do. And I can close this down now. And when I come back out, I've got a new updated version of the map, right? New timestamp. And then the important thing is I've got to go back up a level in the directory. So in this case, back up to my route, and I need to take, I find it easy usually to delete my old version of the zip file, but take these and zip them again. And in this particular case, it chooses a name for the zip file. This is where, get out. Old. And this needs to be FS22 underscore, and it's case sensitive, so make sure you've got it exactly as you've called it, or else when you go back in, it won't work. And then you need to put that new zip file for the map in your mod directory that you're using. So in my case, I'm using the mod assistant, so I'd put it back into the directory for this save, and Bob's your uncle. And in 5 seconds or less, that is a quick overview of Giants Editor. Well, overview of Giants Editor. That's one thing. That's what I did to fix the trees. And what you'll would find, if I've got the tree correctly, is one of these ones out here, and you can see it's one of these two, I think, we just corrected, and that will have the right attributes. But if you look at it from here, you won't be able to tell. The only way to tell will be to cut it down or try to connect the yarder to it. So I'll pause for a second. Any questions about that before we get back into our gameplay? Sorry, wrong. Where have I gone? So, any questions about that? Well, thanks, Jason. That was really bugging me because I just couldn't understand it. I really didn't think it was something that Giants would have done wrong, particularly once I got onto Halmakra, and there was no fuss, no trouble. The yarder just connected directly. So it gives me a lot more confidence with some of the issues that we have from time to time to be prepared to look into the map, because when you look at the amount of data that's stored on a map about stuff that's happening on a map, it helps you realize that only has to be a little bit, something a little awry, and you can end up with all the weird behavior that we see from time to time, and that, you know, sometimes unfairly it gets attributed to Giants or the mod makers. when in actual fact, because it's a moving landscape, you know, things have moved on and it just doesn't work. So no worries, Space Cool. Glad I could help and hopefully save people some time. The limited amount I know about Giant Editor, and let's give credit to where it's due, I've pretty much learnt from a British chap who I haven't seen anything recently, but seems to do a lot of stuff. A guy called Shy Wizard, and he has some really useful tutorials. More recent times, Farmer Bob has been streaming his exploits building a map, and I've used his sort of way of walking through things just to get a little bit familiar with the editor. I'm the same, Jason. There's every chance it's an FS19 tree, right? So because Giants update things like that collision map and what the bits do periodically. That is still shut over there. Yes, so we'll go up here. I'd love to make a decent, when I say decent, an Australian map out of about a different area, one sort of more in the south of the divide, so in the area around where I live, which isn't so flat and arid, a little greener. Terrain's not alpine, but it's nice nonetheless. But I can see easily several hundred hours work to get a map sorted. Now, we learnt last time, if you haven't seen this map, I've left the triggers on for the minute. But this is one of the sell points, the transport yard, and what's happened in here, if you haven't seen it, is there's individual sell points on the racking for lots of the production produce, things like eggs and, in this case, trees. And but if you don't want to move it around and distribute it, then you can just drop at the front sell point here. But what you find, the map makers provided an incentive, is if we take trees, so there's 2 sell points at the transport company. If you sell at the general point, you get half the value as if you split it around. So, and of course, the best place to sell is the farmer's market. So this sell point right in front of me is the half price one. The individual ones are the higher price. Now what I'm hoping here, which are you going to be able to get off that? Which side are you going to unload to? Let's see if you'll take that off the... I reckon you're going to unload left. I can't remember. I think there's actually a... It might give me a visual clue when I try, but we'll see. Western Victoria, it's dairy and, well, it depends, more in that, if you come further south you come, lots of dairy and sheep. In the north then you get a lot more cropping. Now let's see here, shift I. It won't let me do it. Okay. We'll cheat because I don't want to mess around with this. Yeah, I was thinking Western Victoria. I was actually thinking the Yarra Valley. So the area around a little place which is only an hour or so's drive from where I live, called Dixon's Creek. So it's sort of, you know, undulating terrain. Oops, that didn't put it in the sell point. Now, has that given us enough maybe to lease one of these? I'm just not sure I've got the patience to invest what would probably be close to 1,000 hours to get a good quality product, because there are just so many steps. Let's see here. That is enough. Okay. So I'll never say never. I'll keep building the skills up and see how we go. Kind of the next step, the fixing this problem without breaking everything is giving me more confidence to potentially experiment with mods or modifying the maps a little bit to tailor some of the Let's Plays a little more. I know some mod makers do that, and so rather than be kind of frustrated by things you find or that don't quite fit the story, go in and modify the maps, and that'll be the next one, so we'll see. Oh, Blender, I had a look at that and blew my brain up. That getting to think in 3D from a 3D modeling standpoint is intriguing, but confusing. And there's a lot of steps in doing a good model too. Now, what do we want here? We want to we can turn you off. Let's pick up a couple of these. My nephew is finishing high school in London, and he's doing some program as part of his school with and he's doing a subject which is sort of like a computing tech thing, and that's he's managed to convince his parents to buy him a 3D printer as part of participating in this program. So he's messing with all that stuff at the moment. So if you're wondering what we're doing here, folks, this map offers a handful of contracts on in fact only one sort, grass contracts. If we have a look at the map, there's a freeway that runs through the map, and the only, with the exception of one down the bottom here, the only predefined fields line the freeway, and so consequently the only contracts on offer are along the freeway. Now we're in December, so we don't have a bunch. I picked them up before we came forward. Get off there. Now I'm stuck, am I? Yeah, he's a wheeler dealer. And they live in a typical London suburban terracey sort of house, and he's in the converted attic. That's his bedroom, which they discovered he was heating quite effectively. He sort of had a PC that he was supposed to be using for school, and then he had built something else. Oops, I'll pull that up. Not gonna get that, am I? And anyway, he was decided that it'd be a really good idea to mine cryptocurrency, and so basically he was heating his room by just running as much computer gear as he could get his hands on continually. Oh, that's a weenie one. Okay. Sorry, there's lots of messy handling today. So what we'll do here... Right. Now, we want to go to the animal dealer, who is down here, which is the road out of town on the other side. I just want to do one of these contracts to sort of get us back in the positive for the minute, and then we can go back and look at our fields and decide what to do next, and also to see how much I actually need to deliver these before we can roll over. We can potentially finish the other two. The grass is cut on them. They haven't been tedded though. For those of you that are enjoying my video series, the last Adelshoven episode for the moment will be probably today or tomorrow, and next, or by the end of the weekend, I'll be starting a new series on Silver Run, but farming. So there'll be a little bit of logging from time to time, but for the most part it'll be farming, and we'll pick up with our characters, Paige and Jake, about 6 months in, so just after Christmas, and I'll let the rest of the story unfold when we get into proceedings, but they'll have been on the land for about 6 months, so they'll have some fields cut and a few things in place, and we'll follow their adventures in that region. So you can, if you're interested, you can look forward to that coming next week. And I'll run that series, alternating episodes in tandem with Griffin, which I'm quite enjoying. It's not that I'm not enjoying Adelshoven, but it just struck me that actually we could do Silver Run in a different way. This truck is lacking some ergs. Okay, we know that I can't pull a trailer of these up the hill. I don't mind this Lintrack in terms of its maneuverability, but its cost for its performance is out of kilter with so much other of the in-game equipment. So spending 120 odd grand on this unit versus one of the bigger trucks doesn't make a lot of sense, except in the situation where we needed something that will deliver to the market. Now, we haven't been up to this part of the map, so let's see, where's the sell point for bales up here? Maybe over the back there. This is a nice little community of Melbourne. There's a fuel point at the back. There's a sawmill. How about that? Would have made the shed drive through, whacked it in the corner. Let's see here. So if we take one off the back, which albeit smaller, will give us an idea. 19%. Oh, that's handy. It's taking field 9 first, which is nice. And that was a small bale, so 4 of these will actually do the trick. We'll deliver all of them because we'll get plenty off the others. Rightio. You're not folding back up. Hello, talk to me. That's better. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing it, and have not got to even close to what it is. I am experiencing what I'm assuming is a mod conflict since the update, either the 1.8 update or the expansion. I can't pinpoint it, it's not frequent, but every now and again I lose my mouse control of my camera and I get locked into a fixed forward view, and the only way I can get out of it is to tab into a vehicle. Yes, Jason, I've experienced the same. And my rationale for doing it here was, see, now that's really interesting. So field 9 is showing 99%. So I've got to, I need to figure out how to cut just a whisker more grass in order to be able to finish that contract. That was one thing. I was worried that when I went into December I wouldn't be able to cut the grass, and that may still be the case, although we need to find a way, otherwise I'll be docked a whisker on that contract. So that was more what drove me. I thought, well, if I cut all 3 of them and then roll into December, I'm fine. Yeah, it could definitely. So the cases where it's occurred I've definitely got auto drive and horseplay because I typically have those on most maps. I noticed it a lot while I was doing some setup work on Silverrun yesterday, and it just seemed to be. Now it could also be that something in that I'm running Lockie's new updated version of Lumberjack, which is fantastic, I might add. Let's have a look at. Okay, so I can still cut grass at this time. Check the contracts tab. It was 100% delivered. Field 9, 99% complete. Because it was only 19% on the cutting. So I think what I need is a front mower or a hand mower just to be able to tackle those little bits of grass. Have I got that alpine, where are we, mowers? So there's little mowers. I don't have any cash again, which is annoying. I don't have, so what we need is to be able to grab a front mower for the tractor so that we can just finish that off. So we will, where are we going to? Well, you need to go down the freeway because the next bales you're going to pick up are going to be down here. We'll do the Ghost Rider thing. We're in Germany somewhere, I think. And that's why I've turned traffic off. Because I have not found another way to get to these fields. Well, particularly this one down the end here. You can see this is field 24 and I reckon I've cut it pretty well. I can't for the life of me figure out where I'm going to get another a little bit of grass. But them's the brakes. What do I want to do here? At the end of the day, I can just short deliver a contract at 1%. I'll make it up. That's not a big deal. The next thing I was going to do, though, if we come over here, what I just wanted to demonstrate if you hadn't seen it. So Lockie's updated Lumberjack to work with. Let's get out from under that. Oh, maybe I didn't put it on this build. It's also a possibility. I haven't, you know. That's a nuisance. I'll go back and look at that in a second. What I'm going to do is save this and jump out. And just give me a second to get out of there and to go into here. I know you can't see what I'm doing for just a second. I just want to grab the new version of Lockie's Lumberjack mod, which I am using over there. copy that and put that in there. Replace that. Launch that. And we should be back in a second. There's a link to this on FSG's Discord. You might have to scroll up a bit because it's been really busy, but or if you subscribe to Lockie on GitHub, you'll have it. It didn't deactivate it, did it? But the feature of it that I love is the addition that he's put in for 1.8. He's a bit of a legend, isn't he, Space Wolf Cub? When he gets an idea that he wants to run with, he's amazing. Okay, almost back. And if we now go down to a tree, I still don't know. I don't know if I mentioned it the other day. So you see the message up there about the new auction. So I've got a new auction on a farmland without trees because I'm running the auction mod. And so there's all our farmland. I have no idea, right? There's 205 purchasable pieces, 207 purchasable pieces of farmland on this map. Which one's up for auction? The mod, I think before the 1.8 patch, the mod used to highlight the block that was available here, but with the patch and Giants changing what they display on this screen, you can't tell anymore, which is a bit annoying. So if anyone's got another way, there's no hotkey or anything. I haven't really investigated how the mod works, but I can't find out where that auction is, which is a shame because we may well have bought it. But I digress. So back to trees. And so if you can see in the help menu on the left, there's now a descriptor that says length, and that tells me that the piece, whoops, that I'm cutting off is there 5.7. So whichever let's go to a log that's a bit easier to see without the too many logs in vicinity. Where are we? There was another one over here somewhere, I'm sure. Here we go. Grab that piece and pull it out. Make it a bit easier for everybody. Yeah, so there you go. So once it's selected a log, it's showing you how much is on each side of the cut. So I can to the precise length. So if you haven't seen that, a lot less messing around than the tape measure mod or other ways that people were doing this. But for what I want, and particularly I found on Silverrun, if you're cutting logs to put in the container because you get the best fill rate, then it's perfect. If you want two logs that are the same lengths, but in my case on Silverrun, I was using a 6 meter container. I wanted 6 meter logs. So away you go. And so you can mess with that. So just thought I'd show that off. If you haven't picked it up, I'm sure it will come through to ModHub shortly. It's just on GitHub was the fastest way you could get it out to the market. So there you go. Right, you are. We really should progress these grass contracts, shouldn't we? So that we can get them done. So we need a tedder and baler down at field 24. Oops, lost my steering wheel. For reasons best known to Logitech, the centering spring on my steering wheel resets when I restart the game. And it's not a giant's issue. It's something bizarre about the Logitech. Showing both lengths is amazingly helpful. And it's so simply implemented. When you're in a situation where you're trying to cut stuff on the ground to length, you know, so yesterday I was having a go at using a container. I was just trying to clear the fields for this series that I'm setting up, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to experiment with the new equipment, but I didn't want to kind of do it super fast and, you know, just devour all the trees. And I wanted the 6-month prep work that I do to be somewhat realistic and in keeping with the budget that I'd established and the parameters of the scenario. And so I was using this 6-meter container, which you'll see when we get into the series. And of course, you know, one of the things I learned was that you need, the closer you get to 6-meter lengths in the 6-meter container, the better value it gives you for the logs. So if you didn't know that, if you can put any length in, but it'll discount the volume of the log to some formula I don't know, in terms of the credit it gives you as it's filling the container. Whereas if the maximum is if you cut it to the right length. So that means it's incredibly easy. You don't have to get too fussed if you're 6.1 or 5.9, but being able to just have a fallen log right beside the container, you know, whip off a length at the right bit, bump it in. It was just so much more convenient logging than my past experiences with it. So right, so we're not worried about traffic, so we'll drop you off there. And we'll drop you off there. So that's one thing that, you know, my first impression of the real positives with Silver, and it's easy to be critical of things that you're not happy with and don't like, but one of the real positives is they've made a big step forward in the practicality of doing logging if it's not your most favorite thing. Right? If it's something you love, then you'll work your way around all of the things. But if it's a, you know, a means to an end and just a part of, you know, the story or the way you want to play, you don't want it to be enormously challenging and frustrating and annoying. You want a kind of a way to work through it, a bit like you can with harvesting and, you know, the more traditional straight farming aspects of the game. And I think they've achieved that pretty well. So I was quite impressed. And I'm assuming you're talking about these little tiny tufts down the side here, Jason, that you reckon I might have enough of that just to kick me up that extra couple of % that I need on this field, because you'll see I'm at 18. We need to get to 20% cut in order to be able to tip this contract over. I'm pretty confident if I put a front mower on the tractor, I'll be able to clip those up. Okay, you're not going to do that. Let's whip you around Oh, and there's another little bit up there that I couldn't get that mower to. So that could also be it right there. Am I down or up? If you didn't see last time, folks, the equipment that the game's provided for this contract is the wrong size. There's no two ways about it. So the Vermeer mowers are enormous, right? And little patches like that at the end. And in fact, looking at it there, I can see quite easily that that little bit that I've not been able to do is almost certainly the 2% that I need, the way the field will be defined. Yeah, the brush cutter mod, or the I mean, that in keeping with how the map makers thought about some of the aspects of what they're trying to do on this map, that'd be a really neat inclusion. So if you got a custom set of mowing equipment that included the brush cutter, for example, with the right size gear for this job, that'd just be a really neat touch. And it's completely doable. Right? The map makers have complete freedom to have custom gear configurations. They don't need to go with the Giant's default mission equipment. I've only used the brush cutter mod once. And I had the same. It was really funny. It was within a couple of days. I used it on Griffin when I first was exploring the map. I cut grass around the house and I wanted to tidy it up a little bit. And I thought, oh, I'll use the brush cutter mod. Maybe I can use that in a Let's Play. And I had exactly the same experience that I then saw Mr. Sealy P have a couple of days later, where the brush cutter got stuck in the foundations of the house. And oh, did I laugh? It's like, I've been there, Mr. Silly P. I did that. It was very funny. Had to be there, I guess. So what's everybody got planned for the weekend? Is it a busy one? Their family activities? What are you all up to? And yes, I could TED this, but I'm figuring by the time I go back and TED it with the width of it, I might as well just pick it up with the baler. Because the TED is like I'd turn it into 2 TED rows, but I'd have maneuvering challenges, and there's only going to be a couple of passes to do it this way. Think of it as hoovering up the grass. Kids and sleepovers, yes. Been there for that. ZU. Mine do leaf blowers. That's true. Rake. Let's go rake. I like rakes. No rain, you've got some mowing. I did the mowing last weekend because it's been so ridiculously wet here. I've been taking the opportunity to mow it. Now, I'm only talking about a house block. I've got nothing substantive to mow, let's be clear. It takes me like an hour and a half with the Wizzo electric mower that I purchased last year when the 35-year-old petrol mower had a conniption. And I must say, I am a fan of battery-operated lawn mowing. It's awesome. For small jobs. Battery technology probably have to improve a fair bit for large jobs, but as I say to people when they ask, I bought an $800 t-shirt and got a free mower and whippersnipper. It's not doing too badly. Is everybody playing Silverin? I'm kind of curious. Do people sort of drop the maps that they're on to grab the Platinum expansion, or are they reserve judgment and not buying it? Or what's people's points of view? Three acres. Whew. That sounds like work. Is that enough to bail? And like, would you get it bailed at any point, or is it just a project job to cut? $6,300, need 200 more litres. Here we go. Still on Iowa. I'm really interested to see now with some of the mechanics that are obviously touched on in the new map, which of the accomplished map makers had some pre-warning and have some maps in the wings that come out with some of those things, you know. So I can think of some of the creative types that you have around, you know, the Oxygen Davids of this world, for example, the project based mechanism that's in evidence with the roller coaster, not necessarily for a construction contract, but could be used to do all sorts of things. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. There are a few buggy things that yes, because you can. Yeah, I think there's a few buggy things. I also think exactly, Jason. I think we're going to see a lot of winches I also think the way some of the mechanics operate and some of the things that maybe have been coming for a little while in Giant's mind, so capability that was under the covers that they've turned on or tuned, I think some of the bugs we're seeing are actually mod conflicts. And once the modders react to those, I think it'll tidy, because I don't think it's fundamentally broken. I think its quality is actually pretty good on a relative basis, and so I think that once the mod conflicts are filtered out of the equation, it'll come together quite nicely. The only reason I've got it straight away is because I bought the season's pass. I'm not sure that's a mistake I'd be making again. Not because it's, I mean, it's not hideous value, it's just I've been consistently surprised on the downside, not the upside. And so if I'm going to reserve judgment on a DLC, I'd rather do that with the fullness of information, which is a shame because I'd like to support them. Generally speaking, I think they do a fairly reasonable job. Given the experience that we had with trees, the other thing which will be interesting to see, it should be a straight, whoa, don't want you there, straightforward mod to produce is a like a stanchion that you can erect. So where you don't have a tree in the right spot, just throw up a little tower that the yarder will connect to. Even if it's just a rig out on the back of your ute or something like that, I would imagine that should be pretty straightforward once you understand the specific attribute that Giants is looking for. Another yarder. I don't know if you can connect two yarders together. Certainly not currently. But you just need the stanchion to be able to do it. This guy's not designed for fence work. I mentioned in the stream on during the week where I joined Yargsy. I joined Argsy. I finally found a use for those. Yeah, so the yarder anchors to the ground, but the free end of the yarder you need to attach to something fixed, and at the moment the only thing it attaches to is a tree that it deems suitable. And so if there's no trees suitable in the area that you want to anchor the yarder, so for instance you want the yard, in my case I wanted the yarder to pass over a specific point in my established yard, I've got nothing to attach it to, so I just need a steel post, if you like, that I can put down temporarily that anchors in the same way as the yarder does, and then I can then join the yarder too. I mean, in Australia we'd call it a flying fox, right? You just string a cable between two trees, typically over a ravine or a river, and you use it to ferry goods, people. You know, it was a standard senior scout expedition activity. You had to get your troop across the river. Only one person was allowed to get wet, so they had to make a flying fox. Right, so that's all baled up. Leave that there for a sec. One thing I wanted to do, and so I'm just going to pop 5,000 in. I actually don't need to do it that way. Don't have to cheat. We can just extend the loan and I'll reduce the loan later. Because we do have some loan capacity. So let's put 10,000 in. And this is what I was talking about the other day. So this is the most ridiculous example of it. But if we lease one of these guys for $380, so this came with the Antonio Carrero pack. It's a tiny little unit. It's kind of pointless. It's cute, but it's not very useful for anything. Well, I finally found a use for it. So as you saw, it was just less than $400. Oh God, this is going to take all day. Excuse me. And so now we've magically arrived. So this yarder over here has two characteristics if you're not familiar with it. One is that it needs a power source, and the other is that it needs to operate downhill. But I discovered that as power sources go, as long as you put it down pretty quickly, so lower it, we can now, and we can't run it to anywhere. Oh, there we go. I can run it to that tree. So I can set my yarder up. So you'll see this was one of the trees that I edited because you were here the other day. That clearly wasn't available. And you can see how it's attached. It's quite clever. I now have a yarder run by this guy, and I can get the carriage to follow, I hope. If I use the key bindings that I've changed. There's a log. Right, and it'll move my log for me. It'll lift it up. So for, what's the price of that yarder? Forestry equipment. Right, so that yard is 38 grand to buy, or $2 grand to lease, plus 400 for the other. So, you know, it's a $45,000 solution to get you a yarder set up that how you use it on your farm is only really limited by your imagination. And I reckon that's kind of neat. You know, for an occasional setup on an established farm where you've got a few trees to cool down every now and again, and you don't want a you don't want a logging trailer because you're not into your logging. I mean, to me, that's a workable configuration. And as I said, finally found a use for the Antonio Carrera. So who knew that it's really just a mobile PTO? Yeah, I see it, Jason, as it was kind of two characteristics. One, if you're only doing an occasional one, or just a handful of trees, being able to set it up like this and move the logs directly to where you want them. Because remember, the span on even this unit's got a 500 meter span, so it's going to go a quarter of the way across your map. The other one's 800 meters, almost halfway across the map. So if you've cut your logs to 1.6 tons, what's that one? That one's only a light one. That's 6 meters at 182 kilos. So 1.6 tons, that's a fair bit of wood. You can move the timber pretty quickly. The other thing you can do is if you position one of those 6 meter containers here, it doesn't take much fiddling around. So you can actually, as long as you got it up high enough, you can drop the container here with the open end this way. If the log's cut to length, it'll load straight in the container for you. So it's pretty quick and easy if you want to do it. And I found it a lot less, as I said, I tried it out yesterday, a lot less annoying than trying to pick logs up and put them onto a log trailer. I actually wonder if you got a bit practiced at it, whether or not you could load a log trailer directly with it pretty easily too. But that would probably require some practice. So I just thought I'd illustrate what I had found there. Now, where are we up to time-wise? 9:30. So we've got half an hour. Let's have a look at our fields here. So the grass will need cutting next year. And our barley is coming along nicely. Now, somewhere the other day, somebody was suggesting that you could still lime it after it had been planted. Does anyone know if that's a thing? This isn't awful. There's patches where it's not great. But other than that, there's nothing we need to do for it. Sing out if you know if that's the thing. Now, what do we want? What's the cheapest front mower we can get here? 9.5 grand looks like. Let's lease one of those. Have I got a tractor over there? I do. With PF, I can lime with that whenever. Okay, so it's possible. The question that I probably should ask, is it something I should do or should steer away from? I just need narrow tires. In reality, if you put lime on an established crop, it'd burn the bejesus out of it, wouldn't it? Or am I not understanding? let's see, can we get 1% on field 9? So where's the bit? I reckon it's the bit on the top of that lump that I couldn't get. Yep, it would ruin it. Okay, so in my mind, whilst I could do it, I don't think I should. Let's open you out. Unfold. Turn you on. Put you... Am I down? Why do you not look like you've... That's better. So we're looking for 1% to complete this guy. If we don't get caught on the stanchions. That's my word of the day. Thank you, Jason. I hope you've had a good evening. Enjoy the rest of your week and your weekend. Good luck ferrying the kids. Hey, we got completion, so there's one. Do that without falling down there. There's certainly not enough on this one for another. So let's zoom down the freeway in the wrong direction. We can do the other one that we were working on. My intention is not that we'll need to tackle these contracts again. I was just curious about how they operated, whether there was anything fun involved in them, and I wanted to generate some cash, so that's what we've done. I'm hoping as we will now skip forward to February and when we've got them done, and see the development of our own fields come forward and keep us busy. That's the plan here. Ooh. Drink time. We don't need you. Looks like we've got some sun out here today in Melbourne. That's a pleasant change for the week. Let's put you down. Is there anything to cut there? No. I'm going to zip down the other end of the field. I'll only cut those bits along the fence if I need to. I'm got a sneaking suspicion that the 2% I'm missing is associated with this little bit tucked around the corner down here. That I just couldn't get to with the big Vermeer mower. Well, there was 1%. So it's just finicky about the... It's one of those things you really need to do every blade of grass. Don't reckon any council mower I've ever seen around here has had to work this hard. In fact, since COVID, I think most of our councils have stopped mowing the grass. 19, come on. Where is that 1%? Probably along there with the Baileys. Whoa! Up and over that 10-foot mound. Come on. It's not grabbing it. I cannot get close enough to cut it. It's very fiddly. I'm gonna try and just see if I can. It is a pain in the grass. Or maybe on this corner. It's kind of one of those things where you're just hunching around for. There it is. It was just that little bit there. Okay. Well, let's run down to field 3 with our. I think field 3 with our mower was pretty good. What do we need to do here? We need to create a convoy. Whoops. How did I do that? That is that button. Isn't it? Yes. Hand slips off the steering wheel. Now, if we turn you around... Oh, actually, let's pick up the bales while we're here. No point taking you down the other end without loading you up. So, that's reasonable progress. We've got the bales. This contract will complete when we deliver. So we've got 15 minutes. We should be able to TED and bail the other guy in 15. I can't get round there with you down. Ah, get off the fence. So thinking ahead to the upcoming Silver Run Farm episode, Cranky, you've probably seen quite a bit of Silver Run already. Is there anything in particular you'd find interesting to see in a video series? I've got a bunch of ideas which will come in the fullness of time, but I'm interested in your thoughts, or anyone else that's in chat for that matter. Space Wolf Cub, if you're there. What would be interesting to see? So let's F. No, Tito. My dog is hoofing at me from the doorway. I would imagine that means that the other occupants of the house have departed and he now thinks that I've spent long enough sitting in here. It's time for me to entertain him. Right. That'll work. We don't want to go up that one, do we? That's not the road. Okay. XU. Simon says drive this way. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Cranky, it's kind of like it's a different sort of farm. So one of the mechanics I discovered when I tried to place something that's sort of part of the farm story, so the way they've implemented rocks, it's another object, but you can, in the same way as a tree, you can break them and remove them. We need to get over the coming along there. All right, so you need a rock breaker, you know, jackhammer of sorts, and they break down. And so, you know, having the capability on your farm to do a little bit because your farm's growing on the edge of a wilderness area, yeah, that strikes me as a bit of an interesting combo. So that's the path. I thought it was... I understand why. The map's actually, when you start to look at it from a farming perspective, the map's actually quite small. Particularly with all of the terrain you use for terrain features. Oops, we've lost a vehicle at the back there by the looks. And, you know, so creeks and roads and those sort of things, which I guess is what, and the placeables themselves take up quite a lot of space, which I guess is why they don't have an animal dealer. But I do think it's a bit odd that they haven't included an animal dealer on the map. You know, there would have been an opportunity, I think, for a custom one that maybe not necessarily a sale yard so much. Right, so this is where we need to be. Let's go back and find our... I think I've cut this. Let's stop you. And find out why you stopped. Well, I'm very happy to have anybody that wants to watch and escape from the world for a bit, Space Wolf Cub. So I'm glad it's kind of working for you. I just tried. What I find is every now and again, and you know, there's so much content in the collective community. Every now and again, it's just nice to hear other people's perspectives. That's why I watch other YouTubers, because they have an idea, and that sort of, it's not that I want to copy what they do. It's so much it's, oh, well, I've seen you do that. I wonder what would happen if we tried this. You know, could you do it that way? And to me, that's the fun aspect of the game. It's a bit like, you know, what appeals to me about this map is that the mod makers done some different stuff, and I might not be interacting with it quite the way he or she intended, but that doesn't matter. It's still fun, and that's where I find it disturbing / entertaining to go onto the Giants forum, which is unfortunately at the moment a bit of troll central for the most part. So certainly the noisiest people on there seem to be trolls for some reason, but you know, some people are just going out of their way to find things to express anger and frustration about us. Like, oh my goodness, you know, there's so much good stuff here that you can have fun with. You know, you've got a choice to be happy or sad. Let's choose happy and let's go for the good times. So, you know, and you know, the whole, I mean, I'm I'm far from a natural person to be a YouTuber, but it was kind of like, well, this is an interesting community, and you know, maybe, you know, the world feels a bit lonely sometimes, and maybe there are actually a bunch of people around that have similar sorts of ideas, and you can extend your fun just by interacting with them and sharing stuff that you do. And it's kind of strikes me as that's a nice place to be. So anyway, getting all philosophical 2 hours into the stream, so that's my perspective for what it's worth. One of the things that's been quite interesting, you guys can't see it, but I can see the stats, is so for whatever reason, I don't quite understand, YouTube really wasn't a fan when I went out and did that piece in Giants Editor. I'd have to imagine it had something to do with my screen settings, and because I set that up quite quickly, literally had that brain fart sort of 30 seconds before the stream started. So I wonder if I've done something wrong. We must come and collect the rubbish that's around here. I've noticed now that I'm looking for it, there's a lot more in town. But yeah, YouTube or OBS wasn't real happy with that adventure out, but since then it seems to have settled down all right. Up and over. I'm guessing that's not the best way to use your cheddar, but I always say rental equipment works faster and in more situations. Well, we're certainly going to get these contracts nailed today. I'll extend over a few minutes. If people have got to go, then I perfectly understand get a little bit tongue-tied. But I think it's worth finishing these today so that we can roll through Christmas and the new year. I'm expecting this valley will get snow and pick things up maybe in February. Oh, you mentioned experiments. One of the ones that I have been tossing around, kind of started life as an idea for a how-to video. The sort of the working title in my head is Finance Matters. Yes. Yeah, I saw that episode, Craigie. That was a cracker. There's a handful of things in terms of how principles about how finance work in the game, which, you know, for the most part can be a bit boring, but there's also, I suspect, quite a few myths, and I'm keen to run some experiments, which maybe a live stream provides a better vehicle to do on the right map, where we get to the bottom of how maintenance, usage hours, and kind of value interact. So, you know, as you use tractors more and they get older, how does that affect your repair costs? I did have a crack at sort of the starting suite for setting that up as a video, and it sort of got a bit tedious, but I suspect in a stream situation where you can kind of get the concept out and then interact with people who are going to have ideas about things to try or ways to measure, and, you know, we can roll the clock forward and catch a whole bunch of things. We might get a bunch of interesting content with, you know, a range of different equipment types. So just saw you, there's a good idea, there's a concept. Maybe there's an experiment we can do. I'm certainly keen, you know, on this map to use this setting as a place where we could do some experiments if people were up for that, particularly once we get a few more fields and the economics a bit better under control. I don't want to be necessarily running something where I'm cheating in an enormous amount of money, because that affects the overall characteristics. If we wanted to do that, we can do that on a standalone map, and that's easy enough to take a copy, as you saw. Take a copy of the map, or any map for that matter. I think when I had a go at it, I tried to start out on Western Wilds because flat seemed to make it easier to set things up. And I was going down the path of creating a couple of auto drive courses to, you know, with obstacles or field segments in them, so that vehicles would have to work and I could run them in loops to see how that accumulated information, what hours and maintenance effect. So anyway, we are going to need a tedder down here because it will be quicker to do this field with a tedder. Where are we? Go to the yard. Look away now. I'm just calling Captain Kirk. Beam us up, Scotty. Yeah, it's up there. Well, I'll put it on the list for a future day. Oops, I managed to drop it on the dividing barrier. I might be able to pull you off. Yes, Tito, I heard it. Yes, I know. It's my phone. So the dog recognizes the message and the ringtone on the phone, and he gets quite agitated if it goes off and you don't go and attend to it. And he's got a different set of barks, and when it first started to happen, it was quite interesting, but he obviously picks up on the fact that human behavior triggers off the phone. But it was not something that I'd encountered before. But certainly if my phone rings and I don't hear it, I can rely on him coming and telling me about it. Which, unfortunately, in this day of scam calls can be a little bit annoying, but most of the time it's just entertaining. The upside of having an intelligent working dog as a city family companion. Even if he does have anxiety issues. I quite like this windrower, the mere one. It's not necessarily in this setting, but I reckon it's a pretty handy bit of kit. We've just ticked out over the hour. If people have to go, I understand perfectly. I'm just going to keep going for another couple of minutes until we get the bales picked off and delivered to the dealer, because then these 3 contracts will be complete. Why not windrow the... Whoa, just got it round. That was more luck than skill. Let's see how we go here. Are you a bit of a Top Gear fan, Cranky? I know my son's probably watched every episode a couple of times of the original series and whatever the tour or Grand Tour or whatever they called their spin-off when the BBC got tired of them. Or they got tired of the BBC, one of the two. I think my favourite episode, no, there's a few. I liked the The one in Africa, or the series in Africa, when they were looking for the source of the Nile. Grand Tour, yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, they did. It's amazing. Every now and again you get TV combinations of unlikely characters that just fit well together, and I think they're a perfect example. Oh, there's another car in there. Hadn't seen that before. Delivering fish. Delivering fish. I can't say I can remember that one. The budget for blowing stuff up was probably pretty amazing too. There were 3 blokes in Australia that had a go at doing an Australianised version. I'm sure it was that TV executive who thought it was a really good idea. It just never quite kind of got there. Okay. Probably is enough for us to bail up without getting too excited about. Let's head back up here. And go and grab that baler. One more race in the Formula One season, and then we have to rest for a year. I must say I did enjoy the Brazil race. So much overtaking. And I have to say that, oh, well, I declare, I'm not a Max fan. And I think he just went to prove that ability and class are not the same thing, and that it's entirely possible to have one without the other. Yeah, unfortunately, and you know, I don't know the man, so it's just you know, an opinion from an incredibly long way away, but that's how it he appears to me consistently. And I get that to be successful in that sport or in any individual pursuit, you got to have a fair amount of an overindulgence of self-belief and drive. But I just think, hey, g'day Tanner, great to see you. No, you've been lurking, which is absolutely fine, but Brazil woke you up. Invited a comment. Are you a Max fan, Tanner? The interesting contrast I see with Max is that elements, and so the same trajectory could be true, elements that I see in his behavior, I observed, I didn't see that, Cranky. I observed in Hamilton early in his career. But then I observed that Hamilton grew up. And the Hamilton of the last few years, I think, has been terrific. Well, I agree with you completely, Tanner. I felt for all of last year he was downright dangerous, and that, you know, I'm glad we didn't, but I thought there was every chance that he was either going to kill himself or Hamilton just to try and prove that he could win. Now, thankfully, because he's had a much better car this year, and, you know, Red Bull are a genius outfit at building cars to suit particular drivers. You know, Adrian Newey's a dead set legend. You don't need to explain. It's perfectly acceptable to actually have to work and be doing this as a sideline. I'm just, you know, I just feel privileged that anybody pays any attention to me rambling, to be quite honest. So that's why it was such a hoot when Argsy was happy to let me stream along the other night. That was, I had a good time. But yeah, my outlook on it is, you know, I don't, particularly when, even in the F1 setting, when your teammate has gone out of their way on occasions, and it's not just once, Perez has done it several times, to be of assistance to you, to actually fail to participate when you have an opportunity that costs you nothing. It just does my head in. And a part of that, I guess, is because it's team sport is such a big part of Australian life and the world, the Australian world that I grew up in. The idea that you don't work with the team, that just, I just can't understand it. It's so far out of my context. Well, all the main action was on Argsy's portion of the stream. I was just trying my best to participate. I was having a great time. I'm not sure it was necessarily my best work from a streaming standpoint. I was really struggling to get my keyboard working and my skills working with the different pieces of equipment. I tried several things. FSG helped me out at one point, adjusting a couple of things that absolutely made it easier, that I had settings that sort of defaulted to wrong. But I've only got the joystick on the on the button box. I don't have what I'd consider a proper joystick, and I don't use it a lot anyway, or occasionally for forklifting, just to sort of up and down. But the keyboard sensitivity is challenging. And working different axes at the same time while you're on keyboard is kind of not a happening thing. Oh, that's where I need to be. I can see how he's decided that to justify it to himself. I think you got to look at it, you know, if it was, I can see other drivers, well, and it's happened before. I don't think, from what I see of Checo on the same distance of view, he just doesn't strike me as that sort of guy. Yeah, that's a really good example, Cranky. That's where I just think Moulton's growing into the world champion boots, and maybe Max will get there. You know, he's still a young bloke, and maybe at the passage of time he'll get there. I kind of hope so, because I like world champions to come across as good people. I'm not a big follower of the McEnroe style of world champion. Well, so I think dumb really is a good way to sum it up, because if he was playing the long game, even if he believes that, you know, Perez did it to him for Monaco, to fail to read the impact that Perez's personality has on the people around him and the team, and therefore by so overtly screwing him for no real benefit, it just sows doubt and dissension in your team. And just why? Yeah, there's certainly bits of it in Alonso. Yep, I can see that, Cranky. What's interesting about Alonso, so where he, and I've seen it really up and over. I've seen it this season more than I ever recall before. Is there's Alonso in the heat of the moment, and you know, the same way he drives, there's no filter between his brain and his mouth, and it's that skill that makes him such an outstanding driver. After the event, I've seen numerous situations in the last week, and whether he's just better coached and, you know, more mature and professional, but he's come out and stood behind what he said, or reframed it in a way that's or apologized. And I don't think Alonso of old would have bothered. I think it's going to be interesting to see how George Russell goes. I think he's got some less desirable traits under the covers there. No doubt he's a very talented driver. I don't think there's another bale to be had here, so no worries, Space Wolf Cub. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm literally going to just pick up the bales and take them to the sell point, so we're not going to do much more than that, just as long as it takes me to get these on the trailer and drive down there. I might actually put a tractor on the trailer at that point. To that end, Cranky, I reckon it's going to be fascinating next year, because I don't think the combination of Gasly and Ocon's going to be all. That's going to be a seriously oil and water pairing as well, and I can see a fair chance that they will end in tears on numerous occasions. The likelihood of trying to share the same corner at the same time is, when they're with Alpine, is extremely high, much higher than Tsunoda and Gasly was, I think. I think Ocon just hates anybody that's in front of him. I don't know that it's personal. And I don't know how Leclerc puts up with the team that is Ferrari. God, that'd do your head in. Come on, just come around there. I just need you to pick these three up. Sun's getting low in the sky. It's only, I suppose it is December, isn't it? I'm gonna have to turn around there, aren't I? I'm tipping that'll be plenty of contracts for this. Plenty of bales to complete these two contracts. I think all the new drivers could be interesting next year. Let's take the truck off because I'm pretty confident. I'm pretty confident the truck's not going to pull that load over the hill, at least not in any reasonable time. I think De Vries has done good things. I think Piastri's done good things. So getting them on the track will be interesting. I hope Mick Schumacher retains his seat. I'm actually like Zhuanggo. think his second year will be good. He's showing flashes of things. I think I probably got more now, which I don't want that road. Which exit road do I want here? I'm down here. If that takes me through, I need the next exit ramp. Mick lost his. Bugger. I wasn't up to date. Well, I can understand why they've done that, but I think that's a shame. I think it would be very difficult being Michael's son in the world of F1. A bit like LeBron's son coming into the NBA. All right, so we'll just get these down and we'll be done for the day, chasps. That's interesting, Cranky. I think that was the seat that Ricardo was angling for. Now, I don't know if anyone other than Danny thought that was a good idea, but I think that's from reading between the lines on a few different things that I saw. That may have been the case. Now, the tricky thing here is I only want to put enough of these into the sell point. I am way behind on the news. $6 miles an hour. Bit undersized for a big load of hay. Ricardo, that could be really interesting. I reckon Ricardo and Perez could work really well together. And Ricardo would provide a good connection for Perez, because Ricardo always benefited from Red Bull being able to build a car for him like they do so well for drivers, and he really struggled with that when he switched to Alpine, in particular McLaren. And so I think he potentially has connections and relationships in the Red Bull community that could be really valuable to Perez, because he hasn't quite managed that side of it as well as you know, it's all tuned around Max, which is completely understandable. Oh well. Lots of interesting things in the coming year. We're almost there, just inching our way up. If it's only a month, if it's a month or so ago, that was rumor and speculation. I'm not sure that there was any fact base behind that. unless Red Bull have come out and said something recently, like within the last week. Anyway, no matter. We are here. Just got to make sure I don't sell more than about 8 of these, hopefully. I wonder where the edge of the sell point is. Let's try here. Oh, wrong way. We're doing so well. How much should we get up there? Field 3. Roll it forward. Roll it forward. One more. Terrific. Well, I'm not going to worry about picking these up for the minute. We can do that, or I can do that off camera. We've made good progress today. The reason for keeping these is twofold. I want to put some in our fertilizer or mulching composting factory, and I want to keep some for, I'm thinking to put a few cows down actually, but we'll deal with all of that in the next stream. Until then, thank you so much for watching, everybody. It's been terrific. I've really appreciated the comments and chat and having people along, and we'll see you next time. It'll be Monday evening for afternoon evening for the UK, Europe and US, Tuesday morning for me. So until then, have a great one, everyone. See ya.